Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSC, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons, and we are back from a one-week break. No show last week, but we are back this week with a lot to cover in the NBA world, and the first thing we're going to start off talking about is All-Star Weekend, and if you're going to listen to this on YouTube, the question or the title of my video is going to be NBA All-Star Weekend was ... And in my opinion, NBA All-Star Weekend this year was a success. A success. There are still some things that need to be changed a little bit. I think the NBA All-Star Game, now this year was a little different because they did a tournament style. That was a huge success in my opinion. You saw Team World go out there and compete at the very beginning. You heard Anthony Edwards say, Victor Wembanyama, he set the tone of the All-Star game at the very beginning, which I thought was perfect. And this was an All-Star weekend that was an All-Star game that was kind of lackluster in the stars and the big names. Luka and Jokic played very little. You had no Curry, you had no LeBron, you had no Giannis. So it was a huge success, in my opinion, from the NBA implementing this tournament-style bracket and splitting the U.S. and the world teams up. And the two U.S. teams were very different in how they were set up as well. With the Stars, who won the whole thing, led by Anthony Edwards and Cade Cunningham and Tyrese Maxey, they were pretty young and full of young guys that some of them are in their first couple games of All-Star Weekend, still getting used to the whole festivities. But then obviously you got guys like Devin Booker on the team, who was a little bit of a seasoned veteran at the All-Star Weekend now. And then Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Duren, Chet Holmgren, like all these guys are super young, outside of really Devin Booker, to be honest. And Anthony Edwards is now a seasoned veteran at the All-Star game, compared to the Stripes team, which was led by Kawhi, LeBron, and Kevin Durant. And then you got like Jalen Brunson, Jaylen Brown, De'Aaron, and Donovan Mitchell. It's a good mix of the young bucks who are making their name in the NBA every single year now, compared to the guys that are staples in the NBA, future Hall of Famers like Kawhi, LeBron, Kevin Durant. So I think that was also a huge success and a great thing that the NBA did. But this All-Star Weekend and the games for the All-Star Weekend, they had a different feel about them. And it really comes from Anthony Edwards and what Victor Wembanyama came out, had the first 7 points in their first game. And I'm happy that they did set it up in a way that the world team played first. And if you don't know, Team World went 0-2 on the All-Star Weekend. Their team was Victor Wembanyama, Pascal Siakam, Karl Anthony Towns, Jamal Murray, Denny Avdia, Alperen Şengün, Norman Powell, and then Luka and Jokic only played in the first game. So they were lacking a little bit of star power due to guys sitting out at the very end. But Victor Wembanyama did his thing. If he wants to cement himself as one of the top players in the NBA, this is a perfect time to go out there and do it. And you still got young guys that are in their first game, like Jamal Murray and Pascal Siakam, who never takes anything for granted. Denny Avdia, Alperen Şengün, Norman Powell. This is what the All-Star Weekend needs to get back to every single year. Having these guys that are in their first, second, maybe even third All-Star Weekend, really pushing the older guys like LeBron and Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard to the point of where they're going to be actually competing, because you're putting a little bit of bad blood in the air. In this game where Team World lost to Team USA in their second game to go to the championship, Kawhi Leonard had 31 points. And Kawhi, a guy that's known for being a little bit injury prone, you would expect him not to take the All-Star game really seriously. He goes out there and drops 31 of the 48 points that Team USA had. That is what the NBA All-Star Game needs to get back to. Anthony Edwards did end up winning All-Star MVP. He was excellent the whole weekend. Obviously, when they called his name, he was a little surprised. But even you had guys like Kay Cunningham, who was actually playing defense. Same with Scotty Barnes. So this is what we need to get back to. I like the round-robin tournament-style games where it basically is one game for the championship. It's not a fourth-quarter game where even in the past, when there were like more high-powered people cared about the All-Star game, it really didn't come until like the fourth quarter is when people really started to care and really started to play defense. But I personally loved the All-Star games as a whole. And I just read a thing that this NBA All-Star audience was the highest since 2011. So this also worked for money-wise for the NBA. It brought more attention and more viewers because you have this world stage coming and having the guys that are from all parts of the world. You got Norman Powell, who's representing Jamaica. He's got Jokic and Luka from Slovenia and Serbia, and you got Pascal Siakam from Cameroon. These are parts of the world that don't get put on the big stage that much, especially in the basketball world. So being able to give some of these fans from these countries that don't have a lot of NBA players, don't have guys that are really in the mainstream media, it's huge for them, and they're obviously going to support their guys. So I think that is something that's really perfect with this All-Star weekend, and I hope that they continue to do this, split the Team USA and the Team World, because this is just huge. And we also didn't have Shea. I forgot to mention him, which that is a huge audience that is just coming to watch Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada. So this was really a success for the All-Star game. Now, to talk about the other things that happened at All-Star Weekend, the three-point contest, it was cool. Damian Lillard goes out there, he wins it. Still rehabbing from his torn Achilles, which still seems so crazy that the guy that won a torn Achilles, or has a torn Achilles, is rehabbing from a torn Achilles, ends up winning the three-point contest. And I really liked what Damian Lillard said about the whole him competing in the three-point contest. He said, if I'm able to, I'm going to compete. A lot of people need to be okay with not winning. That was a huge thing that I took away from what Dame said. Was he was talking about the three-point contest and the slam dunk contest and how some guys just aren't okay with not winning something. And it's All-Star Weekend. You're just pretty much there for the fans. Obviously, like, as a competitor, you want to win everything, but at the end of the day, it's really just for the fans to come out and be able to see all their favorite players from their favorite teams competing for fun. Because at the end of the day, these games don't matter to anything. So it's always just fun to see the little competitive edge. And Dame put it best, don't be scared to win or lose when it comes to All-Star Weekend. And I think that's what it's come down to. Maybe not the three-point contest as much because it's really not as much work, but the slam dunk contest, I'm just going to be honest, I didn't watch any of the slam dunk contest. I know Keyshawn Johnson did win it. His dunks were pretty lackluster in my opinion, comparing it to some of the dunks we have seen in recent years, especially from Mac McClung, who has won it for the last 3 years. It's tough to watch. And I do agree with a lot of guys, like, as NBA fans watching the dunk contest, we have just become accustomed to seeing all these amazing dunks. And how many more new dunks are there to see? And personally, something that I really thought about after seeing Jace Richardson almost get severely injured when he tried to dunk the ball, when he tried to do the off the side of the backboard 360 dunk, there is a risk factor in doing the slam dunk contest. It's really something that can be prevented. We haven't really seen anybody get injured at the slam dunk contest. But that Jace Richardson dunk did scare me a little bit. Guys trying to push it a little too far and ending up on their back, ending up landing awkwardly and twisting their ankle, and then they're out for 2 to 4 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks, and then that kind of ruins their second half of the season. So that is something that I think as fans we need to look at and be like, yeah, they're trying. Obviously, it could be better. It could always be better. As fans, we're always going to say, oh, this All-Star Weekend sucked because we're comparing it to all these random slam dunk contests between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, and then we got all this stuff. It's just, as NBA fans, we have to be okay with some parts of All-Star Weekend not being the best, but as long as we do have some things to grasp at and be like, yeah, that was amazing, that's what we need to look at. Anything could be changed. I think one of the things I was going to talk about is I believe that maybe we should get rid of the dunk contest. And because talking with players, like listening to players talk, there aren't a lot of new dunks to be had. Some guys are literally hiring people to learn dunks. I believe Modest Buzelis was doing that last year before the dunk contest. Like, he was literally training with a dunker. I just think it's kind of gone away. There's not a lot of new nuances to the slam dunk contest. And I think something that could be a little bit more prideful for a lot of NBA players, and something that NBA fans might like a little bit more, maybe we should get rid of the dunk contest and add a one-on-one or a 2v2 contest. Now, obviously, you have to set some parameters for that whole thing because you would just get guys like Victor Wembanyama probably winning it every year if that was the case. I'm really taking this from the Unrivaled League, which, if you don't know, the Unrivaled League is like the between the start of the season and the end of the season for the WNBA season, where they sign a bunch of the WNBA stars and women's basketball stars, and they compete in I believe it's 3-on-3, but they also do 1-on-1, and there's like a $200 or $200,000 cash prize, which, again, for WNBA players, that means a lot more than an NBA player. But if you put a number, a value to winning the one-on-one contest, you get to be crowned the best one-on-one player for a whole year until the next year, and then you also get a cash prize. That's going to bring a lot of people. And maybe you set it up as maybe it's a king of the court style setup where you have an offensive side and a defensive side, where you bring the 10 best offensive one-on-one players, so Kyrie Irving, Anthony Edwards, whoever that you think should be in that. And then you pick the 10 best individual defenders. Now, it gets to a weird situation because you're going to have guys like Victor Wembanyama who are always at the top of Defense Player of the Year. He's an excellent defender, but I don't know if he's the greatest one-on-one defender. Somebody that I'd look at for that is like a Herb Jones and Alex Caruso for the defensive side. I think that is something that could just bring a lot of motivation to guys wanting to be crowned as the best, even though it's just between the NBA. Your peers really know who the best one-on-one player is. And I think that adds a new element to All-Star Weekend that we have not seen before. We've never done a one-on-one. We could do a 2-on-2 tournament where it's like duos. So you get like Cade Cunningham versus Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. That also sounds like a great idea. Now, it is more work for some of the guys that are going to be in the All-Star game and then also in the 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 contest. But you get a break. You get like 4 days leading up to that and then 4 days after it. Again, there is an injury risk with playing any sort of basketball. So that is something that you need to watch out for. But I think a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2 contest could really add a different element to All-Star Weekend, bring some more eyes, and bring some more different variety of players to the All-Star game. It's always been very offensive-oriented, and if we could get guys that are defensive-oriented in there, I think that'd be great. I think it adds a different level of competition as well, because guys like Herb Jones, guys like Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace, and they're just never going to make an All-Star game unless they get a crazy offensive bag. And that just doesn't happen with a lot of these guys that are defensive-oriented. You could get a guy like Dylan Brooks as well. Like, he's a villain out there on the court, and that would be great for All-Star Weekend. He would bring a lot of energy, I believe. So, and you don't even need to crown them as all-stars. You just crown them as one-on-one competitors. So, I think that is something that I would personally love to see. So, at the end of the day, All-Star Weekend, I think it was a success for what they changed, but there are some more things that do need to be changed to bring All-Star Weekend back to its fullest form in the late 2010s and the 2000s era, where the All-Star Weekend was really something that people looked forward to during the NBA season, as well as Adam Silver, the owners, the venue. You need to lower the prices a little bit. I heard that it was $600 just to sit in the 300s in the nosebleeds. That's kind of unacceptable in my opinion. That's just, I get you. It's always to make money, but All-Star Weekend is for fans. It's not for revenue, really. You're gonna make revenue no matter what, even if you make the prices of tickets drop drastically to maybe 200, maybe 300. If you just cut that in half, you're gonna still make a profit off of All-Star Weekend. So, because due to the sponsorships and all the events around All-Star Weekend and what that brings to, it shouldn't be so much a money grab for the NBA from the fans as this spectacle of we're going to be at in Los Angeles, and then next year we're going to be in Phoenix, so we bring more eyes, we got more people, we got all these companies coming. That's what you should be worried about making profit. It should not be off the fans. You should make it for the fans so the fans continue to want to come. This whole point of changing the All-Star Weekend to make it more watchable, that's for the fans. So why are you not making the ticket prices for the fans as well, for the average fan, not the influencers and the media, guys that can actually either get those for free because they're going to work All-Star Weekend or can afford it. A lot of NBA fans can't afford $600 tickets, plus they might not be living in Los Angeles. They're going to have to buy a ticket on a plane, or they're going to have to drive, and then they're going to have to buy a hotel. It's just, there's a lot that goes into the money for All-Star Weekend, and I think they could just do a little bit better about making it a little bit more appealing for NBA fans to actually want to come to All-Star Weekend and spend their money on tickets. Because if it's too pricey, you're just not going to have fans going. So that's All-Star Weekend. Like I said, it was a success, but it was a needed success, and it pointed out that things can be changed to the rest of All-Star Weekend that will benefit it in the long run. Next up, before we go to a commercial break, I haven't talked about my team pretty much all year long, and there's a reason why. I've been boycotting talking about the Sacramento Kings. Vivek Ranadive has done one of the worst ownership jobs in the entire NBA and entire professional sports. Didn't capitalize off our 1 year of promise, our 1 year of excellence, our 1 year of actually being a competent basketball team and going to the playoffs, being a top seed in the Western Conference. So that has not happened. We are now sitting at 12-44 15th in the NBA Western Conference. And at this point, I'm not even mad about it. I want us to continue losing games. We haven't won a game in over a month. The last time we won a game, I was 19. Now I'm 20. So that shows you just how long they have been losing. And at this point, I want them to continue losing. I don't want to cheer against my team, but at this point, we're 12-44. I don't want to see DeMar DeRozan. I don't want to see Russell Westbrook on the floor. I want to see Devin Carter. I want to see Nick Clifford. I want to see Maxime Renaud. I want to see Dylan Cardwell. All these guys that I've been preaching. I've been loving what they've been doing all year long. But now it's at the point where they're not going to lead us to victories. We were in a close first half against the Magic last night. We then ended up losing by like 40. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to continue to see. And I continue to feel bad for myself and for all Sacramento Kings fans that we have to deal with Vivek Ranadive hiring Scott Perry to be our GM after firing Mike Brown to then interim head coach Doug Christie to then hire Doug Christie despite having a team that you viewed as being a playoff or play-in level team. You hired a guy that's a first-time head coach in the NBA. It was never going to work out. Vivek, do better. Doug Christie does not deserve any sort of ill-advised words on his name. He's done exactly what he needs to do at this point of just play the guys that we need to play so we don't look like we're tanking. At the very end of the game, put the young guys in. Let them ball out. We're on a 15-game losing streak right now. That's what you need to do if you want to tank for the first overall pick. But Vivek Ranadive, there's been sell the team chants, and he just sits there like he does not care whatsoever about what the fans of Sacramento care about the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings are the oldest franchise in the entire NBA. Despite being 12-44, they still have a strong attendance every night. And Vivek Ranadive does not care about any sort of any fan, any person that is actually a Kings fan. All it is for him is money. That's not what you want from a GM. You want a GM that actually cares about the team and cares about basketball. Eventually, it's just going to get to a point where Sacramento's not going to have a basketball team. By the time he's going to sell the team, whoever's going to buy it is then going to move Sacramento somewhere else, and then it's not going to be the Sacramento Kings anymore. He is quite literally the worst owner in the entire NBA, and Sacramento Kings fans do not deserve to have the worst owner in the entire NBA. We've gone through it before. We went through 16 years of not making the playoffs. We finally went to the playoffs, and we were so excited. We were the best fans in the league. We still are the best fans in the league because we're still going to games despite being 12-44 with no Domantas Sabonis, no Zach LaVine. And at this point, we're just tanking, which is fine by me at this point. We need a young guy to come in and be our star. But we don't even make any moves at the trade deadline. We trade away Dennis Schroeder. We trade away Keon Ellis, who both great players, in my opinion. Great players. They don't fit Sacramento. Keon Ellis was perfect for Sacramento, but Doug Christie didn't want to play him. Scott Perry didn't want to play him. Vivek Ranadive didn't want to play him. So now we're at the point where we're 12-44. Our fans don't deserve this, but it gives our fans a little bit of hope to look forward to. And if we do land the first overall pick, if we get Darren Peterson, which I am hoping for, we need that guy. He might only be playing 18 minutes a game, but when he's playing his 18 minutes, he is quite literally the best player on the entire court, and it's not even close. The fact that this dude is subbing himself out of games after scoring 23 points in 18 minutes, and that his stock in mock draft is not changing. He is quite literally still the number one overall guy in the entire NBA. That shows you how spectacular this dude is. He's going to come in. He's going to change Sacramento for the better. We're going to be a fun team with all these young guys like Nick Clifford and Maxime Renaud and Dylan Cardwell. As long as we can get rid of guys like Sabonis and Levine and DeMar in the offseason, that's what needs to be done first. Before we even draft Darren Peterson, we need to get rid of them guys. I don't want to see Darren Peterson playing next to Zach LaVine. I don't want to see Darren Peterson throwing lobs to Domantas Sabonis. I want that to be Maxime Renaud and Dylan Cardwell. That's what I want to happen. I want Nick Clifford and Devin Carter out there with Darren Peterson. I want to look like how the Washington Wizards have looked the last 2 years. I want us to be the youngest team on the court. I want us to be bad again because Darren Peterson is not going to change this entire team by himself. I want to be bad once again next year. So bad to the point where Vivek Ranadive has to sell the team, but that's not going to happen because we're going to have a top pick. We're going to have Darren Peterson come in. Fans are going to be so excited to come and watch him, including myself. I'm going to watch all their games. I'm going to watch Darren Peterson play every night. But that's gonna boost Vivek Ranadive's confidence. He's going to say, oh, well, we got fans again. Despite having fans the whole time, that's more money in my pockets. So we're going to keep Zach LaVine. We're going to keep Domantas Sabonis for jersey sales. We're going to keep him because maybe we'll be a 33-win team and just miss the play-in. Oh, yeah, that's what we want to see happen again. We want to get the 9th pick. We want to be the Chicago Bulls again. Even the Chicago Bulls are at a point where they're tanking. They traded away all their players. Zach LaVine, gone. DeMar DeRozan, gone. Nikola Vucevic, gone. Kobe White, gone. Can we do that? Can we do that this offseason, Vivek? Can we do that, Scott Perry? Can we do that, please? So I could just watch next year Darren Peterson and Devin Carter and Nick Clifford and Dylan Cardwell and Maxime Renaud all on the court together. I want to see that as our starting lineup next year. I want to see Darren Peterson just on his own, balling out with all these young guys. So we're flying around the court. Doug Christie can coach a young team because he's a second-year coach, and that's what a second-year coach should be doing. He's from Sacramento. He played here. He can teach these guys how to be Sacramento Kings players. Something that somebody else won't be able to do. But knowing Vivek Ranadive, knowing Scott Perry, we're going to go in the offseason. We're going to fire Doug Christie. We're going to keep Domantas Sabonis. We're going to keep Zach LaVine. We're going to keep DeMar DeRozan. We're going to lose the first overall pick. We're going to fall to 5th, despite being the worst team in the entire NBA. We're going to end up with somebody that is a great player, in my opinion. No matter who it is, they're going to be a great player, but they're just not going to play for the Sacramento Kings. And when they do play, they're going to look terrible. So when it's their time to be called up again, Doug Christie goes, Scott Perry goes, can't rely on him. He was the 5th overall pick. But nah. We don't want to see him on the floor. Because we want to win this game. We don't want to lose this game. That's just what's going to happen. I already know that's what's going to happen. I don't know why I'm getting my hopes up to get Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa or Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer or Nate Ament or whoever. I'm getting my hopes up for no reason because as a Sacramento Kings fans, we get our hopes up and then they just get torn down. This is quite literally, it's such a tough position to be a Sacramento Kings fan because our fans love this team. I love the history. I love the players on this team from a couple years ago, not so much anymore. I do love some players on this team, though. Don't get me wrong. I still feel super highly about Devin Carter. I feel highly about Nick Clifford. Maxime Renaud's been excellent. Dylan Cardwell is one of the best players, like rookie players, in my opinion, at the center/4 position. He's been excellent. but we're in a transition period where it's like we have so many bad players that I just don't want to see on the court anymore. I still have a strong liking to Domantas Sabonis, but I just don't want to see him in Sacramento anymore. I want to see him competing. I want to see Zach LaVine competing. I want to see DeMar DeRozan competing. I want to see Russell Westbrook competing. Don't know why he came to Sacramento in the first place. But yeah, it's tough being a Kings fan. Hopefully we can land Darren Peterson in the offseason. I'm just going to do a real quick tankathon sim, draft lottery sim, to see who gets the first overall pick. And the sim lands on the Grizzlies, and the Kings fall to third. This is just what's going to happen. It's what's going to happen. We're going to fall from the first overall pick and miss out on a generational talent in Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa. I think Cam Boozer's a great basketball player. I don't really want to see him personally in Sacramento. I don't think he's as good of an NBA player as a guy like Caleb Wilson, who we're also going to see maybe he doesn't even go in the draft because he is out for the rest of the season due to his hand injury. But there's a lot of good players in this draft, and I just hope if we don't get Darren Peterson, we land on somebody that I actually see as a future leader and a future piece to the Sacramento Kings team, because the last couple drafts, Devin Carter, I think he's a good player. He was more of a win-now kind of draft. Same with Nick Clifford. They were both kind of win-now drafts. I want a young guy that I can look at as he's going to be the superstar that leads us to the playoffs once again, like De'Aaron Fox did, or whoever. So that's my Kings talk. Probably not going to talk a lot about them until the offseason. Maybe at the very end of the season, I'll recap everything, but we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be back to talk about things to watch out for the rest of the NBA season. This has been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE. And like I said before we went to commercial break, we're going to be looking at some of the things I have to watch out for at the end of the season. First up, this is also going to talk into a little bit something that I wanted to talk about on this episode as well that I didn't get to talk about last week, not doing a show. But can the Detroit Pistons hold the number 1 seed and sweep the New York Knicks throughout the regular season? Now, if you didn't watch last night, the Detroit Pistons came out, and once again, they beat the New York Knicks. Now, their games against the New York Knicks this year have been pretty lackluster, in my opinion. This was arguably the best game of the bunch. It was a 15-point victory for the Pistons, but their other two games that they have played, a 118-80 victory over the Knicks, and then where was their last one? 121-90. So the Pistons have really had the Knicks number, and obviously it is the regular season, and the Pistons beat the Knicks in the regular season last year, but this is a completely different way of beating them. They're being super physical, like they have been all year long with every team, but Cat has not done nothing. He didn't play in their second game, but he played in their first game, and I think he had 4 shot attempts. This last game, he was better, but with no Jalen Duren and no Isaiah Stewart, which we're going to talk about in a second, Paul Reed had that man thinking twice about everything. Cade Cunningham came out there, and he dominated, and I think he has solidified that he is the best point guard in the entire Eastern Conference. And he's definitely third best point guard. He might even be second best point guard, in my opinion. Cade Cunningham has become one of the premier stars. And I think he's inching himself closer to cementing himself as a top 10 NBA player. But then I keep looking at this game, and I just watching this game. It felt weird. It felt like a weird game because the Pistons, they struggled in the first half, it wasn't this they just were leading the whole game. No, they came out in the second half though, and man, they put all their defensive cues onto the New York Knicks, and everybody on this Detroit Pistons team buys in to the defensive side of the basketball. And you got guys like Dennis Jenkins, who had Rick Pitino sitting courtside, his coach at Iona and then at St. John's, who was a Knicks fan, and he was just shaking his head because this Pistons team is the team to beat in the in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. The Knicks, this whole season series against the Pistons has really made me think that Karl-Anthony Towns is not the answer in New York. He's just too soft playing against teams that are super physical, like the Pistons, and like they're gonna deal with if they play the Celtics at all in the playoffs. Cat is he doesn't fit the New York style of a big man center that's just gonna body somebody, super physical. Cat complains about every single bump and foul that he draws, or it's just not winning basketball in New York right now. Jalen Brunson, he's a great player. He's 6 foot tall, maybe 5'10". He is not a number one option on a championship level team, in my opinion. They have good pieces. I like the Jose Alvarado pickup. He had some good moments in this game. His first game as a Knick, I think he had 36, 38 points maybe. I think Jeremy Sohan could come in sporadically and give you some good minutes. I like OG, Josh Hart, McHale. All those guys fit New York. But Brunson, in my opinion, can't be the number one option on a championship level team. And Karl-Anthony Towns is way too soft to be a New York Knicks center. So what that move is going to be, I don't know. Maybe it's going out and get Giannis. I think that's the best case scenario for the New York Knicks. But this is not a championship level team this year. I think if they face the Pistons in the playoffs, it could go to 6-7 games maybe. But I got the Pistons coming out against the Knicks in the playoffs, and it could be some pretty ugly games in there. And then also I want to talk about, for the Pistons side, the suspensions that they're dealing with right now. Obviously, Jalen Duren just finished up his 2-game suspension, and then Isaiah Stewart has finished 2 games. He has 5 more left. I want to talk about NBA fans because there is something with NBA fans that really is a pet peeve of mine. As NBA fans, a lot of people, they like to complain about the physicality of the NBA now, saying that it's just not the same as it used to be. Whether it's the old heads who are saying that nobody in this day and game could survive in the 90s, survive in the 80s. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they get all this backlash for winning a championship because they shoot a lot of free throws. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shoots a lot of free throws despite not ever leading the NBA in free throw attempts again. Just something that people don't want to talk about. They always complain, oh, he's a free throw merchant. He's never led the league in free throw attempts. At his highest, maybe outside of this year, because I haven't looked at the stats for this year recently, I think the highest outside of his MVP season, I think he was 5th. So last year, I think he was 5th. And then outside of that, I think the year before that, he might have been 2nd. But still, he's not a free throw merchant. He's just a great scorer that nobody wants to give him credit for. I will. 20 games in the 20-point streak that he has going on right now, that's some true scorers right there that can do that. It's not a free throw merchant level of streak. But we get this to the point where people hate how unphysical basketball is at this point. But we do see a team like the Pistons are on the rise, leading the NBA in the best record in the Eastern Conference. And you get teams like the Thunder who play physical defensive basketball, and nobody likes them. You want the game to become more physical, back to where you think it was the peak days, and then you see teams that are actually doing it on the defensive side of the ball, and you don't like it. And then we get moments like the Pistons versus the Hornets where there's a fight and we get some suspensions. And then all you guys, oh, these guys are terrible. You should not be fighting in NBA basketball. You want the game to become more physical. Physical sports lead to fights. That's just what happens. That's always what's happened in sports. The NBA in the 90s and the 80s was more physical. Guess what happened? There was fights. Football, there's fights all the time. Maybe not leading to throwing punches, which I'm not condoning anything that happened in this Pistons versus Hornets game. I am not condoning anything. I think Isaiah Stewart was a little, he gets a little hot-headed, but that's just what he is. I love Isaiah Stewart. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the league, and he's an enforcer. That's his job. He wasn't going to see his guy Jalen Duren get sneaked up on by Miles Bridges, who had nothing to do with the fight, but decided, oh, I want to go and try to swing at Jalen Duren, and then go get put in a headlock and get swung on by Isaiah Stewart, and then go on social media and say, oh, you're an enforcer. Yeah, he was grabbing hair. Yeah, you were just in a headlock, Miles Bridges. Stop complaining. You're not an enforcer. You try to sneak Jalen Duren. Moussa Diabate. Oh, it was a hard foul. Doesn't mean you need to get in Jalen Duren's face. You caused it. And then Jalen Duren just pushed you away. Yes, he hit you in the face, but he pushed you away. Then you come back and you swing on him. And obviously, as a guy like Jalen Duren, you're gonna swing back. And then Miles Bridges out of nowhere escalates the entire thing. People want to just pinpoint this on the Detroit Pistons because they have the bad boy reputation. Isaiah Stewart is a guy that has been suspended multiple times. Yeah, that's who he is. And you know what? Cade Cunningham said, I'm going to pay all your fines because I love what you do. You are what we need every game in and out. You want to complain about things like this happening in sports where there's fights. Yes, fights are never good for sports. But if you want a physical game, it's going to happen. Hockey. I don't watch a lot of hockey. I know hockey is one of the most physical sports in the entire world. Fighting is literally a part of hockey. You don't get suspensions for fighting. You get a 5-minute penalty where you sit in the penalty box for fighting. That's just what physical sports do. Now, we have sports like the NFL who you get suspended, you get tossed out of the game for throwing a punch. I agree with that. I don't agree with a 7-game suspension for Isaiah Stewart sticking up for his teammate. I get he has a long list of things, but also I truly don't believe in NBA fans coming after Isaiah Stewart, coming after Jalen Duren, coming at anybody that was involved in that fight, because you're the one that wants this to happen. And then it happens and you switch up so fast. It's just not something that is good for basketball. If you're just going to, every time something doesn't go the way you want to see it, you're just going to hate on it. That's what's led to the NBA not being a likable sport by a lot of fans. Because you go on social media and you just see, oh, Oklahoma City Thunder shot 30 free throws. They're free throw merchants. Then you go to this game and you see the Detroit Pistons are playing physical basketball. Oh, we can't play physical basketball anymore. Pick a side and stick with it. Pick a side and stick with it. Don't switch up after every single little moment that happens in an NBA season because there's 82 games for all 30 NBA teams. I don't even know the math for that. But that is many more games than you can watch. So the fact that you're going to say and make a decision off of every single game, yeah, you're just an idiot. You just want to hate on the NBA for no reason. There's no reason to hate on the NBA. It's something to watch. It's like watching a bad TV show that you don't like and you just hate on it, but you continue to watch it. If you don't like the NBA and you don't like watching the NBA, don't watch it. Save yourself time and energy from complaining and going on Twitter, going on Instagram, and having all these tweets of how much you hate the NBA, how you're always complaining. If you're going to complain that much, why do you continue to keep watching the sport of basketball or the NBA? Go watch a different sort of NBA or basketball league. Go watch something else. Go watch hockey if you want to watch physical basketball, if you want to watch a physical sport. If you don't want to watch a physical sport, go watch some other sport that's not physical. Soccer, it's not super physical, but it's still a physical sport. I played soccer. I know it can get physical at times, but it's not to the level of basketball or football or hockey. So if you want a less physical sport, go watch soccer. They all happen at the same time. So you're not missing out on anything. You're not having any sort of moment in time where there's no sports going on. Go do that. Don't come on every single platform and complain about the NBA if you're going to switch up on your opinion every single day. Every single time you see something you don't like, you switch up. Enough to end off the show. We're going to talk about two other things that I got to watch for the end of the season because that got a little heated, but I truly do stand on that. If you don't like watching the NBA and you're going to complain about it on every single platform, don't watch the NBA. It's just as simple as that. You're saving yourself time and energy where you could be doing something so much better with your time than watching a sport just to hate on it and complain about it the next day on social media where nobody really cares about your opinion other than maybe 3 people that didn't watch the game, but they just want to sit on your side and agree with you. It pisses me off so much just listening to this. But my other two things, the Spurs, can they get the number 1 seed from the Oklahoma City Thunder? They are now sitting at 2.5 games back from the Thunder. I believe they have one more game playing against the Thunder this season. And right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is out at least one more week with his injury. So the Spurs, they got a little bit of time to catch up to this Oklahoma City Thunder team. And if you play them, I believe they play them one more time. I'll double check that. If you can do that, man, that would be huge for this Spurs team. I don't see the Thunder on the schedule for the Spurs anymore, but so that means they went 4-1, I believe, against the Thunder. One was obviously in the NBA Cup, so that doesn't count. But the Spurs, they're sitting right there, 2.5 games back. They're pretty much the only team, in my opinion, that can push OKC for that 1 seed because the Rockets and the Nuggets are 7 games back from the Thunder. And the Spurs, if they stay healthy, even if they aren't healthy, they've won games without Victor Wembanyama. The Thunder on a 1-game losing streak right now, losing to the Bucks. That was their first game without Shai. So, Ousmane Dieng, revenge game against his former team. But that is something to watch out for the rest of the season. And then my final thing is the entirety of the Eastern Conference play-in. Because right now, there's some teams that you might think that are like, oh, they're locks for the play-in. But then I look at it's like the Bucks, if they get a Giannis healthy, they could push maybe a Hawks or a Hornets or even a Miami Heat out of the play-in. And then there's teams that are like sitting right above the play-in where it's like the Raptors and the Sixers. Like if they go through a tough stretch of games, they're only 3 games ahead of the Magic who are sitting at the 7th spot. So I think the biggest team to watch out for in this whole thing is the Charlotte Hornets. They're 8-10 in their last 10 games, or 8-2 in their last 10 games, sitting at 26-30. They're 4.5 games back from the Sixers, who are the 6th seed, and they are one of the hotter teams in the entire NBA. Defensive side of the basketball and offensive side of the basketball. They'll be getting Moussa Diabate and Miles Bridges back from suspension. Con Knippel's been excellent all year long. LaMelo, he's been doing his thing all year. Brandon Miller been hooping as well. So that is a team to watch out for, in my opinion. On a team that I think they're going to push for the top of the play-in. I think they'll eventually pass the Heat and the Hawks, and they'll they'll fight with the Magic for that top seed and home court advantage in the play-in. But also the fact that the Sixers are only half a game ahead of the Magic means that the Sixers, who are already without Paul George for, I think, until the last 5 games of the season, they're a team that they're one injury away from really slipping down the standings. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now, so they're in a vulnerable position. And the fact that Joel, despite dealing with a lot of injuries, has been hooping, but he has been dealing with a lot of injuries. If he misses any sort of time, if Tyrese Maxey, who's a high-usage player, who's one of the top scorers in the NBA, misses some time, this Sixers team, it could get a little ugly for their season and where they sit in the Eastern Conference standings. If you're a Sixers fan, and I'm not wishing any of these injuries upon any player, I would never do that. I think it's just something to look at if you are a Sixers fan or if you're analyzing how the Eastern Conference standings will end up at the end of the season. The Sixers are one of those teams where it's like they could maybe rise a little bit, being only 4.5 games back from the Knicks and the Cavs, who are tied for the 3 seed, and only 2.5 games back from the Raptors, who are the 5th seed. They could rise a little bit, but they could also fall, and they could fall hard to a point where you look at this team who many people are like, if this Sixers team gets the right matchup in the playoffs, they could definitely win a series. Right now, they would play the Knicks, which don't know if I'd pick them over the Knicks, but Joel Embiid, if he's at least 75% of himself, if Tyrese Maxey continues to hoop like he's been doing, and they get Paul George back and he's fully healthy, his mind's fully right, he's got everything going on, that does put a wrench in the Knicks' chances in the first round. But then it's like the Sixers could fall, and if they fall, they most likely dealt with some injuries, and now they got to play some extra games to get into the playoffs, which you don't want to do with a guy like Joel Embiid, who is constantly banged up and constantly just playing through injuries. So the Sixers and the Hornets are two teams that completely flip-flop where they are in the standings, in my opinion. And then obviously you got teams sitting just outside the play-in, like the Bucks, who, if they get Giannis, he plays the rest of the season after coming back from the injury, and he's got his mind set on he wants to finish out in Milwaukee. That is a team that you add to the play-in, and you're like, ugh. Who then gets kicked out? Is it the Hawks? Is it the Heat? Is it maybe the Hornets if they don't continue their hot playing streak as of late? So the Eastern Conference play-in, it's pretty much the same from last year once again, but you don't got the Bulls in there. So new team in the play-in, which would probably be the Hornets, who were in the first 2 play-ins, I believe. And it just something to think about going down the end of the season. Whereas like the Western Conference play-in, it's pretty much set outside of maybe the top. But personally, I don't see anything really changing in the Western Conference standings from teams falling from the playoffs picture to the play-in or from the play-in outside the playoffs. I don't really see that happening. I see pretty much all the teams in the play-in staying there. Like the Trailblazers, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Suns. Only team really I could maybe see falling out of the play-in is the Clippers, just if Kawhi misses some time. If they decide to shut him down for the rest of the season, it's like Kawhi, and it's just going to be Benedict Mathurin and Darius Garland, which could definitely still keep you afloat when you got like a six-game lead on the Memphis Grizzlies, who also aren't trying to win basketball games. I think the standings in the play-in could switch a little bit. I think the Suns could maybe fall. Clippers maybe get overtaken by the Trailblazers. Maybe the Trailblazers also overtake the Warriors. But then the playoff picture, like Thunder, Spurs, Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, Timberwolves, I don't see any of those teams unless there's significant missed time from one of their stars falling out of the playoff picture. But that was Beyond the Scoreboard. This has been presented by RDSC, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons. We'll be back next week talking about more NBA content. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, this is Beyond the Scoreboard presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons.